Hey there, good night. I think I'm live. I'm not sure. It's the first time I do this, so just checking it out. I think I can see that one person is there, but I cannot see like names or anything. So if you're here, just say hi. And so, yeah, first, I'm a bit sick, but I just felt really excited to do this anyway. So I'm here, but my voice is a little bit cracky because I have this cold. But yeah, shouldn't spoil the fun anyway. Um, so this is the first time I'm organizing a live on YouTube because I felt like I wanted to do this already for a long time. Just go live, maybe weekly or just when I feel like it, and just answer questions because it's one of my favorite things to do. It comes very easily to me, and yeah, I was very excited to just organize some kind of, as I wrote already in my post, like a free walk-in consultation or something like that, but also to just get together and see what I can do for you. And it's not that I have all the answers, but I am very excited to just answer some questions and to help you on your way if it's necessary, if it is helpful anyway. And also lately, I've been very intrigued and inspired by the themes of unshaming ourselves and taking radical responsibility and standing in our personal power and just all the ways that we have been taught and conditioned to suppress our personal power and to suppress the very things that we need to feel safe, to feel centered, to feel grounded, to feel confident, to speak our truth, and how subtle the coping mechanisms and the masks and identities and character traits or behaviors are that we have created to feel emotionally safe. And I'm intrigued by two things: that staying emotionally safe is not going to help us transform, but that in the personal growth and healing industry and the spiritual industry and everything, psychology and therapy, there's a lot around emotional safety. And I think that emotional safety is important, but the way it's been used in our society right now, I think we are trying to stay too emotionally safe, which is not helping us grow and transform. This is all a bit abstract, but I'm very inspired and fascinated by this subject because I believe that a bit of emotional unsafety and taking radical responsibility and unshaming yourself really are the three keys to true healing, transformation, and change, etc. And I now see the chat coming in. Hey, Lollipop, I see the name. Good morning. Wow, that's really early. Thank you for being so early here. Maybe it's your normal time, but maybe not. I just came from like that time zone. I was in Indonesia, but I'm in the Netherlands right now. So that's also a little bit my time still. Well, good to have you here. Yeah, feel free to ask your questions. I know some of you have already put in some questions, right? Because I have them here and I also have your question, Lollipop. So I'll get them to them in a second. Um, but yeah, because of the themes, the radical responsibility, emotional safety, and just overall, I don't know, transformation, change, finding personal power, I felt like doing lives um, would fit that research for myself because I think that getting together and talking about it and just having a little bit of a mirror can already help you to, I don't know, move on with the things you're working on right now in your life. As I more and more start to believe that true healing, change, and transformation is very subtle, very small, very practical. And I just want to spread that message. Maybe this is all still a bit abstract. I will share a lot more about this in the next year. I'm also writing an ebook about all my findings, etc., which I'm going to share too. But anyway, here we are doing a live, and Lollipop says, thank you for doing a live, even though you're not well." Well, my pleasure. It gives me energy, probably. So let's hope. Let's hope my voice stays here. Okay, so I was also curious if I could invite people into the live, but I still have to um, check how that works. Let me check for a sec. This list like participants. Maybe I cannot do it here. Maybe only on the phone. Well, anyway, okay. So I saw you had a question, a couple of questions, right? Lollipop. I will have them here. Um, you shared with me that you were interested in shadow work for people pleasers and also on healing the distorted masculine and feminine energies in women. So I asked you also a follow-up question like, what is the hardest part, or what do you struggle with the most when it's about these masculine and feminine energies, right? And you then told me, I'm looking to learn how to integrate divine masculine and feminine energy so it's balanced within. And you tell me it's hard to do when I don't know myself very well. Where to start and how to start? So that's a big question. I'm going to remove my scarf for that. No, I'm just getting more. Um, it's an interesting research because I think that it's not that simple, even for a woman or a man, to understand what feminine and what masculine energies are. And I think what we see a lot in the literature right now, and in the on social media and in pop psychology and in spirituality, but also in the more feminist or activist areas, or just overall the personal growth area, is that these two energies are still really used to define women and men based on a binary perspective, right? Bell Hooks writes beautifully about this. She always says it very well, like it's a very binary way of looking at women and men, as if it is that black and white. And I think that there is so much conditioning and shaming for, let's keep women for, because of your question, on women, on what it means to be a woman and what is womanly and what is manly, and what is womanly and what is definitely not womanly, and what is allowed and not, etc. Especially also because of like the patriarchy, the system we are living in. And as a little girl, when we grow up, we really learn to feel ashamed for all the things that we are being conditioned that is not womanly, right? That is more masculine or more manly, etc. And because of shame, we really develop a shame based identity, a false identity as a woman, based on the expectations and based on ideas of what it means to be a woman. And I think that your question really is coming from this shame, or this subconscious shame, right? It doesn't have to be big, but these ideas of what it means to be masculine or feminine. But I don't think there is a definition for that. I don't think there is an answer to this is what is masculine or this is what is feminine. And if we if we are on this journey and we are looking for who we truly are, um, I think that deep down inside, you know who you are. You know what you feel. You have these urges, you have this intuition, you have these emotions and feelings. But because of societal conditioning and ideas and expectations, you instantly think that the first things that come up inside of you as feelings, emotions, ideas, your intuition, you learn to feel ashamed for that, to suppress that, to say, this is something that I feel inside of me, but maybe it's not womanly. Maybe it's not allowed. Maybe it doesn't suit the idea of masculine or feminine energy or what it means to be a woman. So I think that the deeper question is, am I allowed to feel what I feel? Am I allowed to say what I want to say? Am I allowed to go for it, etc., etc., in a way? Am I allowed to be who I am and to not feel ashamed for that? And I think that healing the masculine or feminine energies inside of us, or integrating it, is nothing more than just saying, okay, you know what, everything that arises inside of me, I'm going to allow that to be here. I'm going to acknowledge it, I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to integrate it. I'm going to listen to it. And if it feels good and authentic, then that is who I am. And the only thing then what we have to do is to unlearn all the stories, the shame, and the coping mechanisms we've created to hide ourselves, to mask ourselves, to suppress the parts that we deemed unsafe or unworthy or unlovable. And you tell me, I've grown up without a voice or sense of self, like living for others. Yeah, I think that that's definitely a collective experience for women, that is being passed down in the individual family system in a way. So we are being conditioned to be more of pleasers, right? I think you already know this, but we're being conditioned to be more of pleasers, to do the emotional labor, to say yes, always say yes, etc. And on top of that, often if we have an unsafe, emotional, unpredictable parent inside the family home, it is safer for us to enmesh completely with that unsafe, unpredictable parent, to please that parent, to make that sure that the parent feels good, so that we feel emotionally safe. So in the end, it's always subconsciously we are asking ourselves, will I be emotionally safe when I express my authentic self? And I think that's the investigation, right? Will I be emotionally safe? That's what you ask yourself. If you're asking yourself, is this feminine enough? Is this masculine? Is this good, right? Will I be emotionally safe? Won't I be rejected or abandoned, etc.? And in a way, as I said, I strongly, strongly believe that you truly already know who you are or what you feel. And in a way, you just have to be more in make more contact with your body and start listening to the body and becoming aware of where the impulses of the body are being suppressed immediately by stories that you have inside of yourself, or by shame, guilt, fear, etc. In a way. So yeah, I will I've read a lot about feminine and masculinity, etc. But I'm at this point where I'm like, there's just not one definition, and in the end, we are asking ourselves, will I be emotionally safe if I just express who I am authentically? Yeah, so you tell me, so once I learn to look after myself better emotionally, I will be able to show up to the outside world as myself without fear. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm reading it again, letting it sink in. Yeah, and I think the fear will always be there because we are still living in a world that, like, we don't have to gaslight ourselves. We are still living in a world that has expectations and that expects of you to show up in a certain way or to conform to the norm, to stay to be accepted in the in group, right? But also to keep your job, for example. So there is still this gray area where we are in, that yes, we want to be completely authentic, but we know that if we are that for 100%, maybe we lose our job, for example. So we don't have to gaslight ourselves. So the fear is really valid and okay, and I think it will always be there. And we have created more stories, and we feel more shame than is necessary, and we are more afraid that we will be rejected than that is truly the case. So it's a balance in a way. And learning to look after yourself emotionally just really means to, during the day, listen to yourself better, and to start with practicing little expressions of authenticity. So like, if someone I think I always also say this in my videos, but if someone asks you, like, do you want coffee or tea, that you really share, I want tea, if you feel that. And that's an easy one. But if someone says, do you want coffee? And you actually feel you want to have water, but that is already uncomfortable for you to speak it, then that is the first little step to take care of yourself more emotionally. Like, no, thank you, but do you have water? Right? And this is very small. Maybe this is already very easy for you, but this is a good example of how to take care of yourself better emotionally, or to listen to your authentic urges in a way. Yeah, you tell me I've had a lot of instability with jobs, living not as my true self. Yeah, I think I don't know your personal story, of course, and we have time, so you can share if you want to. But if we grow up inside a family home where there is emotional neglect, relational unsafety, or any form of trauma, or even abuse, like if it's bigger, um, and reinforced, of course, by societal conditioning. But if there's emotional and relational unsafety, we really learn that we have to suppress our authentic self in the long run. We really learn to Hi, Cliff. Welcome. We really learn to suppress our authentic self and to suppress our needs, our preferences, our boundaries. And we just really learn to self abandon and to suppress parts of ourselves that we deem unsafe. And the unsafer it is inside the family home, the more we suppress ourselves completely, the more we abandon ourselves completely. This doesn't mean that our true self is not there. It's just that we stuff it away somewhere deep down in some shadow chamber because that is safer. And that causes a little bit of, I always say, a fragmentation in your psyche. So you have these parts of yourself that are deemed as worthy and safe to show to the world and to share with your parents, mostly, and parts that you deem unsafe. And those parts you stuff away, but they're always still there. They're still with you up until today. And that is the inner conflict you feel and the instability, and what is causing the instability. And when there is relational trauma because of emotional neglect and safety inside the family home and societal conditioning, um, you create this story that who you truly are is not worthy or is unlovable. And also, you um, there's this imprint almost in your body that it is really unsafe to share your authentic self. And um, it is really a journey to slowly help your body feel okay with expressing yourself more in an authentic way, which starts very, very small, as I said with the example of the water. And to speak that out loud, no, thank you, I'd rather have water, and to just witness what is happening in the body, right? Shaking, sweating, the knot in the stomach, maybe the tight throat, and just be with that. I'm like, oh, that is how scared I am of sharing the world. That is how ashamed I am of showing the world who I am. But now I know that, I can tolerate that, and I have shared my preference, and then I can go on to the next step in this journey, right? In a way. I'm going to check the chat. Yeah. Yeah, you say that would be hard for me to say no, thank you. So you have water. Yeah, well, then it's a really good example to start with practicing that, because that is taking care of yourself better emotionally. That is reparenting yourself. That is setting boundaries. Sharing preferences is setting boundaries in a way. And it's really becoming aware of how ashamed you feel of sharing that. And also asking yourself, why is it such a hard thing for me to say, if someone asks me if I want to have coffee, no, thank you, but I want to have water? Because that is, I have a need, I have a boundary, and it's different from the person that I am relating to in the moment right now, which means that I have discomfort with disconnection, right? I have a discomfort on authentic self expression. And then we can make all kinds of stories, which we are very good at in our heads and on social media, about masculine and feminine energies, and about what is good and right or wrong, or all kinds of theories and all kinds of therapies. But in the end, you just ask yourself, will I be safe if I express just right now in this moment what comes up to me? Because that's the most authentic. And then we don't have to define who we are or what we are or what the best name for that is, in a way. It's how I look at it and how it really helped me also, in a way. Yeah. So let me check. So Cliff, we're doing just a live Q&A. Yeah, I'm just sitting here with my tea, which I should drink before it gets cold. And yeah, if you have any questions about awakening, healing, transformation, or maybe your own personal journey, yeah, just ask me, in a way. And we were just talking about the questions of Lollipop, about shadow work for people pleasers. Oh, that's also a good one to remind myself of, because now I went into the masculine, feminine energies. Yeah. And I think just thinking about the shadow work for people pleasers, I don't know what your practical question about that is, but I've talked a lot. I've talked a bit about that in my people pleasing video. I think I also saw you asking a question there, if I'm correct. But the main part, the shadow work, is really about um, what is my hidden agenda. It's not about finding that you are a bad person at all, because that's often what is lying at the core of our wound of unworthiness and our people pleasing behavior, right? That we think, that we believe that in essence we are a bad person, and that the world will, in the end, discover that, and how do you say that in English? That they will, well, discover that and blame us for that, and that we are being exposed. That's the right word in English. And but shadow work is more about, okay, if I look at my childhood and the society or the culture or the community that I grew up in, which needs that I had as a little child did go unmet? So which needs weren't met by my parents and my community? And how do I still try to meet those needs covertly or subconsciously? And if that is what is in my shadow, and if I shine a light on that, if I shine my awareness on that, then I can understand how I still subconsciously try to get my needs met. And then I can try to meet those needs myself, or overly asking others to meet the needs I had. And if I feel more fulfilled and have the idea that I meet my own needs, so that I reparent myself, that I take care of myself emotionally, then I can also transform and grow and learn and heal, in a way. Then I can become more authentic. Then I'm not being like guided or controlled by my hidden agenda of the emotional needs that were not met. So I expose my hidden agenda, and I don't lose my energy anymore of getting those needs met from childhood, but I can use all that energy to meet my own needs and to start with creating, to become the creator of my own reality, right? To transform my life, to, in a way, create the changes that I long for. And I can create more emotional safety, relational safety, and I become not so dependent anymore on the validation of the world around me, which also helps me to be more authentic, which frees me more and gives me more joy and life force energy, etc. So let me check. Yeah, Lollipop says, I saw your people pleasing video. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. It was you. And you say, I didn't know I had a hidden agenda, so to speak, or how I have had expectations, I think, for others to meet those needs. Yeah, very logical that you didn't know. I think it's subconscious, right? It's subconscious and not in our awareness. But it's so indeed freeing to understand that that is what we were doing, because it detaches and detaches us from others and from the external validation. And it helps us really to feel more independent and to feel more at ease and at peace with ourselves and with others in a way. So that is the start of shadow work, right? Which needs didn't go met or weren't met in my childhood? And in a way, how am I still trying to meet those needs? And thus, where do I leak energy and sabotage almost myself to grow and transform and heal? And Cliff first says preference, expression, people may not take it well. Yes, that's a good one. I will take that one. Yeah, and you also say, Cliff, I'm often do my own sharing meetings in meetings, I think, for others rather than myself. I notice this, how to be free from seeking. Wait, if that's a question, can you ask it again? Because I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly. But let's start with if you start with taking care of yourself more emotionally and taking tiny little steps to share your preferences or your needs, desires, boundaries, etc., more authentically, there are definitely people who may not take it well. Definitely. That's why I always say start very small so you can learn to tolerate the discomfort that happens when you express yourself authentically and thus have an individual self expression. Often we are in our society being conditioned very much to completely enmesh with each other, to keep each other emotionally safe. This is almost a code in a lot of families and communities. And to break that code causes a lot of confusion and discomfort for a lot of people. And so it's not that you as one your like let's say the three of us are only having this discomfort in expressing ourselves authentically. Almost every living being has this. So we all have this nervous system dysregulation when this happens. So there are definitely going to be people who will not be taking it well when you express yourself authentically. Again, this is why I say start small, because it is necessary that if there's a lot of stress on disconnection and a lot of stress on authentic self-expression, you have to reparent yourself. You have to help your body be okay with little expressions of individuality. And it's not a bad thing that if you are with one person in the room, that at one point you want something different than the other person. This is very natural and very normal. And if we are healthily attached, feel emotionally safe, feel okay inside of ourselves, then we can respond to people having their authentic self-expression with wonder and curiosity and like, hey, that's a great thing. But we are often very relationally traumatized because of the society we're living in and emotionally immature, and we're just maturing emotionally. So any form of authentic expression can lead to some discomfort. And if you want to practice to deal with that, I always advise start small. So if it is very unsafe for you to express that you want water instead of coffee, start there. And then just feel and become aware of the tension in the body, the sensations, the feelings, the emotions. And just breathe and just be with it. And just acknowledge it. This is really unsafe, right? But that's okay. We're doing it anyway. I got it, right? This is really the reparenting. I have a lot of exercises for that. I do this also in my sessions with people. But that is how you create emotional tolerance, or we call that the window of tolerance in psychology. But I always say emotional tolerance because I don't know, just like it better. And your body gets used to that. So you will dare to do it again and again and again, and then you're ready for the next step. So it's creating literally emotional tolerance. And the more you do that and prepare yourself for the bigger disconnections and maybe even conflict or bigger emotional reactions from the other person in the room, in a way. And that will help you to, in the end, more and more share your preferences and what you feel passionate about. But also, if you disagree with someone, that you can just have a conversation about the disagreement instead of only being in this free state and overwhelmed because it is so unsafe in a way. And it's also, it comes up to me right now, you really have to understand why it is so unsafe for you to express yourself individually, to have an authentic self-expression, um, and to do some emotional awareness and body work to go back to the situations where this unsafety is created. Maybe you had a very dominant, aggressive, controlling mother or father that got very angry if you did not do what they wanted you to do, for example, just like a classic example. Um, and then it's really about understanding which trauma is triggered when someone reacts to you expressing yourself individually or authentically, and to grieve that trauma on this connection, and to learn that you are an adult now and that you're not dependent anymore on someone else disagreeing with you in a way. If you have any questions about this, please ask me. Um, I see Cliff has written a next message. You tell me, yes, I look to be taken care of when I share. You are explaining this well. My relationship skills need work. Staying present when I am wanting closeness. In other words, honesty is difficult. Yes, I really relate to that, because it's such a deep fear of rejection or abandonment, right? In a way, I always I have this deficiency story inside of me that is tied to my unworthiness wound, that I'm a very bad person if I deviate from someone else's preferences and I hurt them with it. So I really have this belief that I cannot create uncomfortable feelings in other persons, and if I do that, I'm a very bad person. So I really had to learn to tolerate that deep-seated fear of being a bad person, um, and then just sharing my preference. Like, I can still feel the how scary that was. And it's definitely about staying connected, because disconnection is so unsafe. And this is a real collective a real collective trauma, I would say. I think every client I've spoken to in the past, everybody fears this deep abandonment or rejection and the consequences of that. And but we all have a personal story about what the consequences were that we are so afraid of. But in the end, it ties around unworthiness, being a bad person, or something else, and being confronted with that. And that's often an emotional trauma from the past, and that we don't have to. I'm more and more, I feel like we don't have to go back there and over again, relive it to heal it. But it's more like an awareness and acknowledgement. Oh yeah, I feel very ashamed, or I feel very afraid, and that's okay. That lives inside my body, but I'm an adult now and I can carry myself now. So maybe I can try to do or show a different behavior and see that I'm still alive afterwards. But it's definitely about wanting closeness, and then honesty is very difficult, right? Yeah. I see something coming in. In dysfunctional relationships or society, it hasn't been safe to be our authentic self. Definitely. This is what my ebook is all about that I'm writing. As in everyone on either end of the spectrum. Yeah, either tie the line or be cut off. When we become when we become securely attached to ourselves, it will be easier and easier to speak up, because even if people cut us off, then we will still have ourselves. Yes, that's definitely the goal. It's really about emotional safety, creating emotional safety. And emotional safety is nothing more than, will I be able to carry myself even if everybody around me walks away, for example? And especially when we had a lot of relational trauma, emotional unsafety inside the family home, and there wasn't an emotional mature present, an emotional mature adult present with us, then we really learned that we're all alone with all the heaviness that we experience, or that we're all alone on this planet, and that no one is there to save us or help us, for example. And it's this helplessness that we can help ourselves heal as an adult, in a way. And um, if we don't feel that helpless anymore, then we have ourselves. Then we will be fine, in a way. But yeah, that's beautifully said. And emotional safety in the end is the number one goal, and we create emotional safety not by finally gaining all the attention, validation, recognition from the outside world, or not by finally getting our needs met through others, but by meeting our own needs, by standing up for ourselves, by always listening to our intuition, to our feelings, to our emotions, and by acknowledging them. And that is not that I say that everything that you feel or experience is true, or that everything that you want should be there, etc., etc. But it's more about acknowledging that it is living inside of you and listening to it, taking yourself seriously, carrying yourself, becoming the attuned, emotional, mature parent that you needed. Saying, this is what is living inside of me now. That's okay. What do I do with it? And that is to finally stop with suppressing all that you have been suppressing from childhood out of shame, guilt, fear, anxiety, and not suppressing it anymore, but just allowing it to be all there, and you validating it, accepting it, and loving it. That is how you create emotional safety. And also, that is how you create or rebuild trust with yourself. And if you can trust yourself that you will listen to yourself, you don't need the world around you to validate you or to put your trust in someone else's shoes or your personal power, etc. And that is how I'm not sure if this is clear what I say, so please ask me questions. But emotional safety is nothing more than asking yourself the question, will I be true to myself when it is necessary? Can I trust myself that I listen to myself finally, or for once? And that is what I need. Because the more I listen to my intuition, my emotions, my feelings, and I allow myself to act upon that, the more I show myself, or the parts inside of myself that are still afraid, that I can build upon myself, that I can trust myself. So I don't need others to validate me, or I don't need the outside world, because now I can stand up for myself and speak up for myself. And the more I trust that I will do that wherever I am, so that means that I allow myself to be authentic wherever I am, the more I create emotional safety and peace and confidence inside of me. Yeah, so Cliff says, I have a hard time showing positivity and confidence. Yeah, wow, showing myself. Yeah, if there's a hard time showing positivity and confidence, you are very confident. There is a very confident part inside of you, but it is being suppressed out of shame, fear, or guilt because of childhood and because of stories that you've created, why that part should not be allowed to be here, or why you should feel ashamed for it. And the more you suppress that out of that shame or fear or guilt, the more you create this internal battle, and the more anxious you feel. Because the more your inner parts are in conflict with each other, the more dissociative or overwhelmed or in conflict you feel with yourself. And just starting very small, starting with listening to your authentic nudges or hinges or insights or intuition, and acting upon that will give you more positivity, because in a way you finally allow yourself for all the parts inside of you to exist. And you say, you know what? It's okay. Let's all get together and just live our lives. And um, from today on, I'm not going to be judging you, myself, the parts inside of me anymore. And I'm going to listen to it all. I'm going to learn how to tolerate the discomfort of showing all those parts that I've suppressed for a very long time, because it was emotional safer to do in a way. But healing and transforming doesn't require emotional safety. It requires emotional unsafety, and that will bring you internal emotional safety. Let me know if this resonates, or if you have a question about it, or if I was taking a side path that's not understandable. Yeah. And Lollipop says, I have had that experience being left alone, and I had no real self to connect to. So it was quite almost unbearable. Yeah. I've had no choice but to start to get to know myself. Yeah. Yeah. It's unhealthy. It's the mirroring in psychology. It's called the mirroring, or in the attachment theory also, I think. That we need healthy adult mirroring, right? We need someone that tells us, oh, you're angry right now, aren't you? And which is so simple, but I don't know. I don't think I had that mirroring. I don't know about you, but oh, I see you're angry right now. That I understand that. That's relatable. And that you then understand what is happening inside of you, right? In a way. And also that anger in this example is allowed to be there, and that it is safe to feel that anger. And if all that is not there, it's very dissociative, because you have all these experiences and sensations inside your body, but you learn immediately to suppress it because it's not safe to be angry, for example. And you also don't know what is happening to you. So you just make something of it, and you create a mask, an identity, a coping mechanism to deal with what you're experiencing. And you learn, I'm all alone in this heaviness. I'm all alone with my anger. It's not safe, etc. And that is also how you do not build self-trust, because if you don't have that healthy mirroring, and your parents also even reject parts of you inside of you, you just learn to self-abandon your anger, to self-abandon the parts that are being rejected, to suppress those parts, to dissociate from it, and to create an identity or masks or a role that you deem safe and worthy, and that is accepted. Um, but with that, you completely center others, in this case your parents, as the authority, and you learn to dismiss what is happening inside of you and to trust authorities outside of you more than yourself. And this is an individual trauma, relational trauma, that is happening inside our family systems, but this is also most definitely what is happening in our society. This is really societal conditioning at its finest. And this is how we are being conditioned to completely abandon ourselves, conform to expected norms, etc. Well, it's a whole different life, but definitely is the start of this trust in yourself, in a way. Yeah. Yeah. I was checking if I had everything. Cliff says, feeling internal confusion. I guess I can care for my feelings. You're making sense. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. The internal confusion is, I think, for a lot of people, the fundament almost of their anxiety, for example, or insecurity, or imposter syndrome, or any other kind of a bit dissociative experience. That there are parts inside of us that want to be expressed, but that feel so unsafe to express that we suppress them, but they want to get out, right? In a way. So we feel, uh, as I said, a conflict inside of ourselves. And to reverse that suppression, of course, expression of it, but the expression is often blocked by stories about why it's definitely very unsafe to express the very parts that really want to be expressed. Um, yeah, that's some inner work, individual work that you got to do in a way. I'm going to check because I also had a question from AGATAKJOY. I think it's a bit about what we've been talking about already, but she says, I'm just going to pose her question here also. She says, I've been looking into the IFS model. I think that's the internal family system model for a while. And it's been helpful, but I feel that some bits are missing for me. How do you take care of your young part when you don't feel qualified to help her? How to become that healthy parent for the wounded parts? How do you discern what in your active or professional life is the big self and what is just a manager trying to deal with the results of trauma? And do you have some advice for the situations of mental freeze? Okay, let me start. Sorry. As I said at the beginning, I have a cold, so I'm a bit sick, as you can maybe hear in my voice. So I will be starting with, how do you take care of your young part when you don't feel qualified to help her, or how to become the healthy parents for the wounded parts? And um, she's talking about internal family systems. I think that is a model to also in the psychology or more psychotherapy. I don't work with that model. I'm not an expert, so I don't know much about it. Um, Always when I see the images of the internal family system model, I think it's way too complicated. But I'm like a very intuitive worker, and I don't like models or theories too much, because in the end it always all boils down to emotional unsafety, the mechanisms you create to stay safe and to reverse this, and to help yourself tolerate the uncomfortable feelings to express your authentic self. But having said that, so not knowing all the internal family system models, etc., how do you take care of your young part when you don't feel qualified, and how do you become the healthy parent for the wounded parts? I can do something with that. You're talking about inner child work, right? And I've been talking about that also a lot in my videos, and that is the work that you do to heal the wounded parts or the wounds inside of you that were created inside the family home, to create more safety inside of you, and also to break free from any blockages, etc., and to free your authentic self, right, in a way. And I think I've in this live already touched upon a lot of what I'm going to say also right now as an answer to your questions. If you don't feel qualified to be that parent for the wounded parts inside of you, that's completely okay. And then it's just your body and your system asking of you to take really, really, really tiny steps, because you have to mature emotionally, and you have to, I mean, if you have experienced relational trauma or emotional unsafety, often your emotional development stops at the age that it was too intense, and that you had really to create identity masks and roles to stay safe. So you have to go back to that age, and from that age, take that little child with you and mature emotionally. And that are a lot of words for just start very small and ask for help if you need it. Ask for help with friends, a therapist. I do this in my sessions, but start very small. And it could also be that if you don't feel ready to become that parent, then become an older sister or an older brother, but just start very small. So I don't know where this question is coming from, of course, and what you are trying to reach or trying to accomplish by reparenting yourself. So if the goal is to do something to get somewhere, but you don't feel ready for that yet, it just means that your system, yourself, your body is saying, we're not ready for that yet. So we have to make it smaller in a way. And so, as I already said, start with very small steps, as sharing your preference when someone asks you, what do you want for dinner? I remember and still have it sometimes. I'm like a very I'm a people pleaser. I feel very afraid for abandonment or rejection. I feel very afraid that people think I'm a bad person. So I know all of that inside of me, right? And I'm a very big people pleaser. I self abandon to make others feel good. To I enmesh. I'm also like this. Um, how do you say that? I can do fawning. I can do like making myself small and don't share preferences. And it's not the case anymore, but I've been doing that in the past. And still sometimes when someone asks me, what do you want for dinner? Do you want this or this? I feel that I want one of the options, but I'm still suppressing my desire or preference out of shame. What if that person thinks I always want to have what I want, etc., etc.? I must be a bad person for sharing this, whatever. So becoming aware of how subtle our suppression and how subtle our shame is, and how subtle our ways to silence ourselves are, and start there. Because then still choosing to express your preference for that dinner is reparenting yourself, is showing up for yourself, is creating emotional safety for yourself, etc. So yeah, that's the things that come up into inside of me right now reading your question. I know you're not here because you said you were traveling, but yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. Let me check in the chat. Yeah, Cliff says, As a child, I had a lot of joy, but was shut down. It's difficult for me to trust women." Yeah, I can imagine. That was then definitely something with your mother. If I guess that correctly, please correct me if I'm not right. Um, yeah, yeah. Especially when you're shut down with shame, or when you're I always talk a lot about the collective trauma of women, the oppression of women, and how many of our mothers and grandmothers were forced into marriages and roles, and even becoming a mother when maybe internally they did not really want to. But to stay emotionally, financially safe in the society we're living in, they had to. There was no other way. And that's really a recipe for a lot of fucked up mental states for women, and resentment and anger, and seeing your child being so free and joyful, and is then often the trigger for a lot of emotional abuse and a lot of projection on your child. So I don't know if I'm being correct, Cliff, but definitely could have been the case that your joy and your lightness and your freedom was a big trigger for the women or the woman or your mother or whatever around you to shut that down in you. Doesn't at all justify it, but just to give some context, and that I can imagine that that really causes distrust in women. if this was the case, but feel free to share if you want to do it if it was otherwise. And it's definitely, especially when we are little, we're so dependent on the people around us, right? We're so attached to them, and we really need them to not abandon us to survive, because we need them to survive, literally. So we're so dependent on them that we do everything to stay safe and to stay attached. Um, so in the past, as a little child, it was very unsafe to be confronted with abandonment or rejection. But now we're an adult, we can perfectly deal with abandonment or rejection. Yes, it hurts immensely, but we can deal with it. We have ourselves, right? We're an adult. So it's, if you want to express your joy again more in the world, the only thing you can do is to express your joy, and probably someone will shut it down or will reject you for it or even abandon you emotionally or physically. And it is in learning to tolerate that and still be okay with you expressing it that you regain your personal power, that you reclaim your authenticity and your joy. But that really asks of us to dare to face the consequences of expressing our joy, to be okay almost with being abandoned or rejected. But sometimes that asks of us to really sit with the grief from the past when we were a little boy or girl and we were being abandoned or rejected, and the fear. And that is really some emotional work, to just sit with it and learn to tolerate that and to feel that and to release that, these suppressed emotions, that fear of abandonment, that real deep evolutionary fear, and to feel that we're still okay in a way. Yeah. Yeah, Lollipop says they had their own unhealed wounds, only they probably had no awareness. Not like today with all the information that is available to us. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I also strongly believe that the true intergenerational trauma is being passed down until the generation that is present has the time, wealth, and resources to heal. Because if you're still living in survival mode all day, every day, or you're still being very oppressed, or you're still living in war or famine or poverty, whatever, there are no resources and no time, no wealth to get yourself out of survival mode a little bit and start with the introspective journey and the healing journey. So I think that um, time, wealth, resources are definitely one or two or three of the ingredients that our parents or maybe their parents weren't able to really heal their own wounds already. And we, us here sitting today, we are in a way. And yeah, we're still living in a society that is very, very oppressive and dysfunctional, and forces a lot of people to live in survival mode every day. Um, so yeah, there's still a lot of things to dismantle and transform in a way. I think I have some more questions from Agatha. I hope I have answered your question how to take care of the younger parts and to become that healthy parent. Feel free to send a message if not. And then you have this question, how do you discern what in your active or professional life is the big self? I think that is what you mean as true self or authentic, and what is just a manager trying to deal with the results of trauma. I think I've answered this question already also when answering the question of Lollipop. I think that I'm not really into the internal family system again, so I don't really know the big self or the manager and all those parts. But in the end, you ask yourself, can I trust myself that what I feel is valid, right? That is in the end the essence of that question. Can I trust myself that what I feel is valid? And am I allowed to express that? Am I allowed to show the world my humanness? Am I allowed to Be an imperfect human being and be reactive sometimes, respond or react emotionally sometimes, be angry sometimes, be sad sometimes, be hurt, etc. And the answer to that question is always yes. Because the more you listen to your humanness, your feelings, your emotions, your sensations, your intuition, and you allow yourself that all those sensations, all those experiences inside of you are okay and valid and are welcome in the present moment right now. And the more you allow that and listen to it and act upon it, the more you create self trust. And this has everything to do with unshaming yourself. Overcome the shame on all kinds of parts inside of you. Love the F out of all those parts and just allow yourself that what you feel is okay to express, is valid. It doesn't matter what name we give it, it doesn't matter which theory we put upon it, but just stop with denying or disowning or suppressing parts of yourself out of shame. Become curious. Hey, I think I feel a little bit hurt right now about what you were saying. Let me give me a moment, please, to feel if that is correct or not, etc. And the more you learn to recognize your triggers inside of you, the more you can create emotional tolerance. Take a couple of deep breaths, and also to create some time for yourself, especially in a work related setting. I always say create some time. So if you feel you're being triggered, just make some time by voicing, I need some time to respond to this, I will get back to it, or by asking questions like, hey, I what do you mean by this, or can you explain that to me more? Asking questions is the number one remedy for triggers. What do you mean by that? And then instead of you having to create all kinds of stories and spiraling in your trigger, you just made yourself create some time, and the other person responds to you with an answer. So you don't have to fill in or assume what they are meaning or what is being triggered, right? In a way. So in the end, it's always about, will I be emotionally safe? And do I dare to allow myself that what I feel I can express and is valid? And yes, sometimes that's not perfect. That's not only calm and regulated. We're emotional beings. It's part of who we are. And the more you do this, listen to yourself, express yourself, the more you learn to trust yourself, the more you regulate your nervous system, the more you create emotional tolerance, the more you create a pause between stimulus and response, in a way. I see some things in the chat. Sorry for my cold and my nose. If we do our own healing, does that do anything to heal family relationships that have broken down? If we do our own healing, does that do anything to heal family relationships that have broken down? Maybe you can explain a little bit more with what you mean, but I will already start with talking to what I think you mean, if that is a correct English sentence. Um, I think that really healing and repairing relationships requires both parties to do that. But we have free will as human beings. We have, yeah, free will. So we cannot force other people to travel and journey and heal and grow along with us. What we can do, and that is again the concept of taking radical responsibility. What we can do is two or three things, and that is We can learn how to respond or react differently than what we did in the past to what we get from others. And that is where our personal power lies. And our reaction becomes differently and more detached and more emotionally mature when we understand what kind of emotional needs we are still trying to meet by staying attached to the people that are hurting us. Emotional needs that weren't met in our childhood by our family and by our community and our society, and that we are still covertly and subconsciously trying to meet to stay attached to people that are not always good for us, or yeah, that are not always good for us. By taking radical responsibility, by grieving the things that we did not receive in childhood and accepting that we will not ever receive that again, by having that acceptance, we open the door to our grief, right? And the anger and sadness and hurt, etc., everything that is living inside our body. Um, if we release that in a way, the emotional charge gets off of it a bit. We are able to understand what our needs are and to meet them ourselves. And then we are able to detach a little bit more from the people around us, especially, for example, our family. And then we are able to react differently towards to them and to their behavior, because we're not dependent anymore on them meeting our needs in a way. Um, and that is where we have personal power. That is where we can say, you know what, it really sucked in my childhood, and um, it really hurt, and I really missed that I didn't receive this and this and this and this. But I'm an adult now, and I've grieved the losses of that. So I almost fire you from the responsibility of meeting my needs still today. And if I fire people of meeting my needs, then I can react and respond differently to them. The emotional charge is gone. I can see them again for who they are, and with their own imperfections and flaws, etc. It still doesn't mean that they can be hurtful. But that means that if that really continues and it's really hurtful, that we have to set our boundaries and remove ourselves from those relationships or from those situations, or set really clear boundaries. And hopefully they want to listen to that in a way, in a sense. So true repair requires definitely both people in the relationship. But if that's not possible, which often is the case because you're on your own journey and you're growing yourself and you're probably the cycle breaker of your family anyway, then it really, if you still want to stay related to them, then it really asks some introspection and some radical responsibility, and to detach yourself from any emotional attachment that you still have with them, in a way, in a sense. So it completely depends on the relationship. Let's say that. And I see Shara says, if I say this correctly, you helped a lot on my healing journey. I feel like I'm stuck now because of the added layer of being very chronically ill, stopping me from progressing due to society being ableist. Mm, yeah. Yeah. I was reading it again. I don't know if you have like a question around that. Feel free to share. Thanks for sharing anyway. I think I think that society definitely is ableist, as a lot of other things, and that it's asking of already all people to live up to very, very unhealthy, unnatural norms. And especially when you cannot keep up to those norms, then society is killing. But it's still an invitation, right? To look like, where is your personal power? Where is the radical responsibility to take? Or where is the story that something is holding you back? and what is not the story. And of course, this is just some examples, so feel free to share more. Um, and also, what is progressing, and maybe there are different ideas about even progress for you, and yeah, you can let go of what is society expecting or asking, because it sucks anyway. This society, this race that is being asked of us anyway. Let me check. And feel free to share where you're stuck or where I can help with. Uh, Lollipop says, I don't feel I'd have the opportunity to show up different with my family as none of us talk. I get what you're saying, that it takes both sides to be in a healthy relationship. Yeah. I was reading some things at the same time. Sorry, it was there. Yeah. Yeah. Lollipop, I, of course, don't know like the personal situation. Um, but I would say responding differently. If there was never talking, I would say taking radical responsibility is asking yourself, do I want to talk? Do I want to be in this relationship or not? If that is a yes or no, then you already have an answer. If that is a no, if that is a yes, then of course you can be the one to initiate that, if you haven't done that, of course, already. And that is showing up in a different way. Like if there's a story, uh, I can't because la la la, then responding in a different way or taking the radical responsibilities, daring to show up in a different way. But this is just very vague, abstract, not knowing, of course, your situation. Yeah, Shara says, I was neglected and rejected by my caregivers because of my health, and it feels like a confirmation from society that I'm rejected for not being healthy. Being healthy. I've overcompensated and gone very isolated because I don't agree with anything society is built on. I feel like I don't belong, but I also don't want to. Yeah. Yeah. Let me read it again and take some tea. Yeah, that's definitely a double confirmation, right? Because of the rejection in your family system, inside the family home, and also society. If you're not healthy, you cannot keep up with it, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, and it really creates this deficiency story, right? And this wound of unworthiness inside of you, because I'm not healthy, I'm not worthy, and I will be rejected because I'm not healthy. I won't belong, and I won't be taken into account, etc., etc. And especially when you are little and your parents do that to you, then you don't have any emotionally mature adult around you to help you dismantle that and to help you process what happens, and to prevent you from creating a story that you're rejected for not being healthy in a way. And then you have this overcompensation and isolation and not feeling like you belong. Yeah, I completely understand. And it really asks to rewrite that story, right? And to reverse that, and to really, really show up and over again, and to really understand, okay, what part inside of me do I suppress because of this story, this fear, this grief, and this shame and anger because of what happened to me? And where in my present life do I still am I still being led by that story, which in turn determines my behavior and what I show or not show? I just made a video about not feeling like you belong. I'm not sure if I posted that already. I think I did in the membership, maybe not on the YouTube channel, because I was off some months. especially when we feel like we don't belong, which in a sense you don't belong, right? In a sense, when we feel like we don't belong somewhere, this is true and valid. This means that you deviate from the norm of the group that you try to belong to. And especially in our society, deviating from that norm is unsafe, or we learn to feel ashamed for that, etc. And in a way, to really own that you don't belong and still express yourself authentically is then the journey. So it's like, hey, I don't belong in the set norms, but instead of creating a deficiency story around that and telling myself, because I deviate from the norm, I'm not worthy, I'm going to throw that story out of the window, and I'm going to say, you know what? I do deviate from the norm, but that is who I am. And I love myself for that. And I'm going to express all of me. And by expressing all of me, by sharing my preferences, my needs, my wishes, my boundaries, my joy, my creativity, by choosing and carving my own path, I'm going to create the experience that I belong. And that is, again, the concept of the radical responsibility, which I started this life with also, is that we have to create the experience that we belong, because no one is going to give that to us. No one is going to save us. No one is going to validate us. No one is going to meet the needs that were not met in our childhood, which is very sad and makes us angry and resentful and hurt. But in the end, we can create the feeling of belonging if we allow ourselves to express what is living inside of us. And if we dare to tolerate the rejection or abandonment or shame that follows it. If you still follow me, if not, ask a question or tell me something. Say I still pretend like I'm not sick to meet societal expectation, but it makes me so miserable to contribute to wealth hoarding, but I have to have health insurance. Yeah. I think it's really like, of course there's not an easy solution, but I think there's really some gray area where you can understand and learn where you do not dare or feel safe to um, deviate from the norm and to stop living up to expectations. And there are areas where you still, if you're still dependent on the system, have to live up to expectations. But often because of childhood trauma and collective intergenerational trauma, we have a little bit of a distorted view on that. But that is really something you should um, work on more yourself, or with someone like a therapist or whatever, to understand, because I cannot um, zoom in on that because I don't know the entire story and I don't have you here and see you, etc. But there is a gray area. We're often looking through the traumatized glasses and the shame-based identity with the emotional charge of anger, resentment, and grief into the world. But it's blinding us from the situations and the moments where we do have personal power, where we do have the power to not live up to expectations and be completely okay. So because if that story is still living inside of you, and if there's still a lot of suppression of the trauma and the emotions, then it is blinding us often from seeing where we are contributing to our own suppression. And it's a little bit abstract, but what I mean is that we often create a shame-based identity based on the wound of unworthiness and based on the relational trauma from our childhood, based on societal expectation and conditioning, and based on what we deem is safe. And we create a story around it, right? Because of this and this and this, I'm not worthy. So, or because of this and this, I don't belong. And if we believe that story too much, if we look through that story into the world, we are going to continuously self-censor, and we're going to continuously self-abandon and self-suppress. And there are moments and situations where you self suppress more than is necessary. And if you learn and start to become aware of those situations and learn to behave in a different way than you did before, then you slowly feel your personal power coming back and your authentic self expression. But that is a little bit of a journey to become comfortable with expressing yourself authentically and learn to tolerate the discomfort that follows that. And that is situations where you have personal power, and that is starting very small, and you can make that bigger and bigger and bigger. But that is how you reverse emotional suppression, and that will truly help you to feel more like you belong. Because there is some self-censoring and some self-suppression when we have experienced trauma that you are writing about, and that in those small moments is where your first personal power lies, and you can build that and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And yes, society sucks. It's really the cause of a lot of trauma. Yes, our parents fucked up. It's really the cause of trauma. I will never invalidate that. And still, at the same time, if we want to grow and transform, we can find those little moments where we have the power to choose to respond differently than we did in the past. And it asks of us to become a little bit emotionally unsafe and to learn to tolerate that more and more and to widen our window of tolerance more and more, if that makes any sense. Let me check what is being said in the chat. Lollipop says, I've been treated the same in relationships, like I was in the family. Like Sarah, Sarah or Shara, I see. It has confirmed the feeling of not being included or accepted. Now, being on my own, I'm starting to see through the lies. Yes. Let me read that one more time if I have it correct. I've been treated the same in relationships, like I was in the family. Like Sarah, it has confirmed the feeling of not being included or accepted. Yeah, it definitely is one of the stories, the deficiency stories that I'm always talking about, that we create when we have the feeling of not, if when we are being rejected or shamed or abandoned emotionally for showing authenticity that people are not used to, that is new, that is a threat to the status quo, that is making them feel uncomfortable. I mean, everybody is suppressing their authenticity. So, authenticity of a person is a threat to inauthenticity in a way. So definitely we create this feeling that I do not belong because of who I am. But often this truly comes from not having healthy mirroring and an emotional mature adult who was attuned to your emotional state and who could help you process and understand what happened inside of you. And it's this emptiness in a way that makes us feel that we're not being included or accepted, etc. Because if it feels unsafe to express ourselves authentically, we suppress it. As I always say, this is my mantra: we suppress then our authentic self to stay emotionally safe, to be accepted. um, in a way, we reject and abandon and do not include ourselves, our true selves. So it's, yes, the outside world rejects and abandons us. And as a result, we do that to ourselves over and over and over again to stay emotionally safe. And that is what we can reverse. And that means we do not have to reject, abandon ourselves anymore. And if we reverse that, then we feel included and accepted because we do not do it to ourselves anymore. Because if I completely accept the parts that I abandoned in the past that were punished and that I was shamed for, and now accept those parts to be here and to express them or to accept them, then I feel whole again. Then I include myself. Then I accept myself. And then I reverse that feeling of my past. So, yes, It is definitely caused by the societal conditioning, cultural conditioning, oppression, racism, sexism, ableism, our parents. And we have been internalizing that, and we have been doing it to ourselves. And the only way to reverse it is to reverse it inside of ourselves. I'm feeling, I'm like, is that what I want to say about this? Yes. Okay. Shara asks, are there tools for me to see these blind spots? The blind spots of, yes, there are. Um, it actually asks of you to become that emotional, mature adult uh, to yourself in a way. And you can do that by starting to journal. Maybe you already do that, but starting to journal, listen to yourself more. What is going on inside of me? What do I feel? What do I think? What are all my thoughts? What am I telling myself? Are the things that I'm telling myself true? Am I accepting myself completely? Am I judging myself? Do I maybe still believe, in your case, Shara, do I maybe still believe that the society that I'm living in that is ableist, do I maybe still have some parts inside of me that are also ableist? The systems that I see outside of me, do they also live inside of me? Am I still rejecting or judging myself for it? Where do I do that? When? How? Why? Can I stop doing that? And also, what are the mechanisms that I created and that I still use up until today to hide my chronic illness? Why? Is there still shame? Is there still fear? Is there still anger? When is that being triggered? And then really get to know the mechanisms you created to hide those parts that you feel most ashamed of. Pleasing, having no boundaries, overcompensating, overachieving, um, manipulation, control, domination, uh, all kinds of things, people pleasing, fawning, enmeshment, codependency, whatever. And start to recognize where you use those mechanisms to stay emotionally safe. And this is a journey. You can do this with someone, or um, there are a lot of tools I also have on my online platform, my membership, that you can use for all of this, like somatic exercises, visualization exercises, etc., to help you become aware of it. But and then if you understand your coping mechanisms, like people pleasing, for example, start to recognize them. So this is only awareness and recognition. Like, hey, this is where I please, where I say yes, where I actually don't want to say yes. Why do I do that? Where am I being inauthentic and why? And from that awareness, you can start to create different behaviors, different responses, different ways of relating, creating more emotional safety inside of you, understanding that you will be safe, you will be okay, etc. Yeah. Oh, that's great, Shara. Thank you. You say that was such a light bulb moment for me. So much internalized ableism. Yeah. That's. I'm happy. I'm happy that that was a light bulb moment. Yeah, because it makes me think. I'm just giving an example. If it doesn't resonate, please tell me. But it makes me think of, I'm like um someone like, oh, I'm definitely a woman, but from a young age, I was always already really not feeling okay with expectations and gender role and norms of society of what it means to be a woman. I would say I'm more like queer, I'm like bisexual, and etc. Like a lot of things that in my teens and childhood I never really had examples of, and there's so much sexism also, of course, for women. And I still, up until today, experience. I'm really peeling off all those layers and freeing all this, everything that I am, my authenticity in a way. And it's really interesting that I still have so much internalized sexism. There's so much internalized shame on being a woman, and showing power or anger or setting boundaries, showing up for myself, etc. And up until today, I'm doing this work for already I don't know how long, 12 years. But up until today, I'm still discovering internalized sexism, right? Internalized oppression of women, whatever, internalized shame on being a woman, and how much that is holding me personally, but I think a lot of us back from standing in our power, from speaking up, for standing up, etc. So, and I'm like pissed, of course, that our society is this way, but I also know, I also discover more and more like, oh wait, here am I centering myself because I'm still attached to the validation of men, for example, the external validation in this way. Yeah. So I hope this helps as an example. Um, if not, sorry. Yeah. And Lollipop asks, is the outside a mirror for our inner feelings? Is the outside a mirror for our inner feelings? Mm, I know what you're asking, and I know that a lot of that is being you. That's it's often said, right? Also, more in the spiritual realms, like everything around you is a mirror of what is happening inside. I don't think that is truly the case, because it's also sometimes invalidating or gaslighting a little bit. Because sometimes you're just pissed or not okay with something that happens outside of you. Um, and saying that everything is a mirror from what is happening inside sometimes is also, I think, a little bit suppressing for your anger. Because often when we believe that everything outside of us is a mirror for what is happening inside of us, we often immediately go inwards and still think, oh, it must be me. So my anger is actually la 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 la. No, sometimes you're just angry. Sometimes it's just not okay what someone does, right? And you're very allowed to say something like that. And healing is often very simple because it just asks of us to allow ourselves to be human beings, to not make it more complicated. You know what? What is happening there is pissing me off. And I need to listen to that anger. And I think that what is happening outside of us sometimes is a mirror, because we look, if I mean, if we are already in a dysregulated state because something bothered us or made us angry, and we do not sit with that for a couple of seconds and understand where it's coming from, then yes, we can go outside to the supermarket and get pissed or angry at someone else, right? And then maybe that was a little bit of an emotional projection. So sometimes it can be a mirror, and sometimes I don't think it is a mirror, but it is the cause of the feeling or the emotions that you experience, and that asks a little bit of emotional inquiry, right, or emotional awareness of what is happening inside of you and getting to know yourself more and your triggers, etc., which is a journey. Uh-huh. Okay, so Lollipop says, I get that. I just feel like I attract people who treat me as poorly as I treat myself, is why I ask. Yeah, yeah, I understand. Um, I don't think. This is interesting because this is also coming from a little bit of the law of attraction, right? Like you attract what you um, how do you say that? You attract what you send out. I don't think you attract people who treat you poorly. I think they're just constant invitations to react to people overall in a different way, to react to people more authentically. Um, so, yes, in a way, you attract people who have the same emotional maturity level, but I'm not sure if that really is a law in our universe or we just say that. I don't know the truth of that. That's up to the universe. But I think that you do attract, you allow people in if you do not have more authentic, energetic, and emotional boundaries with others. So, um, if emotional, immature people are in your surroundings and you respond and react to that in a way that you have always learned to respond and react to the world, then yes, you will be treated poorly by them because you allow that in a way. Um, you allow that because you do not set better boundaries or remove yourself from that, etc. So that is why you keep on coming in the same situations with people, because it is an invitation to finally respond or react to that in a different way. Um, when you learn to set more emotional, energetic boundaries, those people will still come into your life. They won't go away. So you will still attract them. This is why I don't believe it's about attraction, but you would just learn how to respond differently to them. So you will learn to say, sorry, not interested, in a way, or just hi, a friendly nod, and you just remove yourself from the situation. So it's definitely about treating yourself different, maybe with more respect. And also, I don't think maybe it's not even respect, but more like worthiness and learning to be okay with feeling guilty if you set stronger, energetic, emotional boundaries, in a way, because it's often about guilt. Sarah says, yes, I get what you are saying. I keep adapting, but in new ways of being ableist to myself. I keep having expectations and pushing my body past limits and feeling guilty if I rest too long. Yeah. Yeah, which is also completely okay, right? It's a journey. And maybe it's a good question to ask yourself, me being ableist, what is it still serving? Which agenda? What is it still serving, in a way? Like, often if we have behavior or if we have stories that we are telling ourselves or still coping mechanisms that are not very beneficial or not always serving, it is still serving a purpose. It is still meeting a need. And it is by understanding that need or understanding what it still serves that we can already become a bit softer towards yourself, for example. Yeah, Lollipop says, so they or me won't hang around in that case. Yeah, definitely. Maybe a little example if that helps. If the examples don't help, also tell me. If I- in the past, like I think as women, I think it is a more collective thing for women that we learn that we should never make someone feel uncomfortable, and we should definitely caretake and do the emotional labor, and we should definitely make sure that everybody feels good, right? Maybe it's not collective, but I know that a lot of women struggle with this. But for me personally, definitely also, and this is at the core of the people pleasing, for example. But if you are such a people pleaser and you feel very guilty if you don't do that, and feel very ashamed if you don't do that, and if you feel very um, anxious that you will be perceived as a bad person if you don't do that, then you will allow and let everyone in your life. And you don't have boundaries, you etc etc, and you have a lot of assumptions and beliefs like, I should always be kind, I should always be nice, I should always listen to everybody, etc. But the more and more I am on this personal growth journey and healing journey, the more I learn to listen to my body and my desires and needs. Like, I love this work, I love people, but not every day and every minute of my life am I here and willing and open and ready to be everybody's therapist and dumpster, and to be everybody's. I don't have to carry the emotional load of everybody. I don't have to caretake all the time. Because if I do that, I will burn out again immediately, because that's way too much. And adult people can be responsible for their own shit, they can carry their own shit. So in the past, I wasn't able to set those boundaries. But now, when I'm just out and dancing, I love to dance, um, and people come to me and start talking to me, and I feel immediately I don't want this, which has nothing to do with that person, but I just feel like, no, I don't want this. I'm dancing. Now I dare to say, thank you, but I want to dance. And in the past, I didn't dare to do that. So there were more and more people in my life that didn't align with me or my emotional state, or my true and authentic self. But now I feel like, wait a minute, I feel a no and I act upon that no. But it doesn't mean that those people are not still coming in my life, but it means that I respond to them differently. I set a little boundary, very soft. Hey, thank you, but I want to dance. Enjoy your evening. They go away, and I have my energy. I'm authentic. I have my joy still there, and I feel lighter and more free. It doesn't mean that I don't attract those people, because especially the energy suckers, right? Or whatever, just people you don't like. I mean, not everybody is for everybody. Um, they are still in my life, and the other way around, but I just say no to it. That's the only difference. And that really asks to overcome the fear and the guilt and the shame of being perceived as unworthy, unlovable, a bad person, etc. Yeah. Shara says it's a conflict within because I'm still conforming to this to society I do not align with. Yeah, it's I really understand that conflict. It's a really big conflict on the one hand, and it's also very freeing to let go of that attachment. But there comes a moment when you feel you're ready for that. There, you don't have to push that or something. Um, this awareness already helps, but there comes a moment that you feel like, you know what? Why would I do that? Why would I do that? But if it's still here, still serves a purpose, and that is completely okay, and you can honor that. I remember when I was a couple of years ago, I was playing with this idea of decentering man, or decentering patriarchy and male validation, or the male gaze or male recognition, just because I felt like I was so influenced by that in my life, and it was also part of my journey anyway. And I just loved this whole journey, of course. So I was um how do you say that, I was just experimenting with how to step out of that patriarchal matrix, how to step out of that paradigm where I have to be a certain way to be deemed as worthy, attractive, or a true woman. I was just disagreeing with it because I felt it was diminishing me of my power. So I was experimenting with completely breaking free from that. And one thing I knew would help me with experimenting with that, because I love the exposure therapy idea, was to grow my body hair. because that is something, I don't know why right now, but something very shocking in the time we're living in right now. And I still have my body hair grown out because I think it's the most beautiful thing on my body right now, which is a very interesting um, step to take, right, and to change the story actually around that. But I remember the first time walking through, I was in the Netherlands, walking through Amsterdam with my body hair under my armpits, for example, and the complete fear and anxiety almost, and shame. And there were stories going on through my mind like, oh no, no man will ever find me attractive again. And for me, this was so interesting because that is how deep our hidden agenda is, of why we are still conforming to norms, because we are still attached to the validation, because the validation gives us, for example, safety, which is true in essence. So we never have to gaslight ourselves for this. It is true in essence that being validated gives us safety. But there is more freedom in, as I said, there is a gray area. There's more freedom than we think in that. Um, so I found that a very interesting experiment, and I'm always trying to break free more and more from all kinds of conditionings and expectations, because it's very fun to do actually. It really gives you a freedom, but it also definitely feels more lonely or scary, because you lose the validation, and you are more how do you say that, you're more dependent on yourself now for validation. You lose the validation of everybody, and there's just a small group left, for example. And it's every time asking yourself the question, can I handle that already? Am I ready for that already or not? And no is also fine. Maybe there's a smaller thing you can try, in a way. Lollipop says, the example helps me personally a lot. I dislike making others feel uncomfortable, unseen, or unheard. Yeah. Yeah, that's when we dislike making others feel uncomfortable. Although it seems noble in the conscious awareness, it has a hidden agenda. It means that we feel very uncomfortable ourselves because we don't want to be perceived as a bad person, for example. So, of course, it's really nice to make other people feel good. So it's not bad to have that intention. So let's not pathologize that, but more that there is always a hidden agenda also. That's our shadow. Like, oh, I really want everybody to like me. But that's okay. Hey, shadow, come sit with me. That's why do you want everybody to like you? And do you dare to let go of it a bit, right? In a way. Laura says, I feel the same. I love how you talk about sexism and letting go of appealing to the male gaze. Yes, it's my personal favorite project right now. We're already two hours, almost 2 hours in, I see, but I could talk about that also for hours, because I don't even know where to start. But we've been so um, oppressed and disempowered as women too. But it's and I can write a lot out of my anger to the system, and I've done that, but I've not all shared it yet. But it's even more interesting for me right now, and that's the journey I've been on the last 1 or 2 years. Where is my responsibility? Where do I have to internally dismantle this patriarchy? And where am I still attached to the validation? And how is that holding me back from stepping into my power? Where is my responsibility? Where do I have to say no to really break free from it? But where do I still don't dare to? And yeah, I don't know, just a little thing. And Shara says, removing the patriarchy is so much harder. It is ingrained in everything. So I get how most people struggle with that. Yes, do whatever you felt was least womanly, and that is so freeing. Yes, it's so freeing. And then, then your entire idea of what it means to be a woman broadens and widens, and it's so much more interesting and so much more powerful, and we have so much creativity and intuition and wisdom, and gosh, so much more than what we are being told and taught. And it's the most freeing experience for me up until today. Sharon says, I was an anarchist since I was a child. If a toy or clothing was for boys, I would get it purely because I wasn't supposed to. Yes, I had the same. I had the same. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, Lollipop says, I wanted or needed everybody to like me because I didn't like myself. I feel like that is changing though. I'm learning to validate myself. Yeah, I really relate to that. I really had the same so much. And I think it all ties together, right? The shame, the relational trauma, the emotional neglect that makes us create this shame-based identity, a false identity, and then trying to get that validation that we never got in our childhood for the false identity that we created the rest of our lives. Working very hard to get this validation for that false identity, working so hard for validation for an identity that is not even authentic. And then when you finally find the courage to let go, then there's also not really a necessity for the validation because you validate yourself, your authentic self in a way. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Shira says each person defines what gender they are. I still wear men's clothes. I don't wear makeup, but I can feel dainty and pretty or strong and masculine whenever I decide. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I don't think it's even about I don't think it's even that binary, right? In a way, it's just authentic self-expression and unshaming yourself so you find the joy and the freedom to do that in a way. I'm just grabbing my warm pillow. Yeah. Just unshaming ourselves and finding a way to dare to more and more show who we truly are. But it's a journey. It's unmasking and peeling off layers and layers and layers in a way. But that's interesting that we share some same experiences in that. Obviously, of course, we attract who we are, so it's not that surprising. But it's good to hear. Yeah. So, are there still some questions left? Maybe we should close it up for today after 2 hours. Just taking some tea. I thought I could like invite people in and then let them ask their question, but I don't see that option. So, but this worked also fine. Thank you for being here and engaging, asking your questions. Yeah, you're welcome, Sarah. I'm glad you were here. I'm always dancing. So that's good. Yeah. I just came back from travels, but I'm always also traveling and dancing. So living a good life. But thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I was also expecting 30 minutes or 1 hour. Uh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I think I will close it off in a sec and then make some little clips maybe out of the entire live and post them again or not. Let me check. And yeah, just know that if you need any tools, you can for like somatic or inquiry exercises or healing tools or whatever, you can find them in my web shop or on the membership. I also do still one-on-one sessions, um, a little bit because I'm quite full, but there's still some spots. And in the future, we will also be expanding our, how do you say that? Not therapists, because they're not all therapists, but like our list of people who you can work one-on-one with that follow my methodology and ideas, etc. And I will definitely do this more often because I really like this concept. So probably twice a month or maybe even more. I don't know. Let's check. And know that you can also always ask your questions under my videos, of course. Um, yeah, that's it. Let's close it off. Thank you so much again. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, just let me know what kind of topics you want to hear more from. But you can just post that somewhere else also. Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.